Hello, welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight we're going to take a walk down memory lane with Sentimental Christmas. I'm using Sentimental Christmas in a layout tonight in honor of Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is December 3rd this year, and it's a day when paper crafters can make a difference simply by purchasing a designer series paper. So the featured paper for Giving Tuesday this year, of course, is Sentimental Christmas. So for every Sentimental Christmas designer series paper pack purchased on December 3rd, Stampin' Up! Will give back a portion of those proceeds to children's literacy programs around the globe, which is so cool. And of course, you can see the Sentimental Christmas designer series paper is vintage all the way. It reminds me of being a girl. It reminds me of grandmother's ribbon candy. It reminds me of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer before it was updated in color. It has lanterns and candy canes and ribbons and candles and all those things that speak to the past. Now, you can get the Sentimental Christmas in a sweet collection that includes Sentimental Wishes stamp and die set, Drucy gems, and a little bit of satin ribbon that comes in the kit. Now, some of these dies actually cut out pieces of the designer series paper. So there's some ribbon, some flourishes, some leaves, a stocking, some candles, and several different Christmas themed icons. And then there are different sentiments that go with it, and I think it's going to work great with this collection. So this collection would work great with old black and whites, old Polaroids, older photos. I'm actually going to use it with a current photo with my high school girlfriend, Debbie. Last weekend, we went away and had a whole day to ourselves, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I am sentimental when it comes to Debbie because we've shared a 44 at least year friendship, and I love that. So here you can see that the Sentimental Wishes stocking die cuts out parts and pieces of the pattern paper. I love this circular pattern here, and I think it's going to make a great background. As you can see, Debbie and I are in an old sleigh, and there are browns and fall colors in our jackets, and we are, of course, dressed for fall. It's fall for us now. We're just getting ready for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to use a little bit of pecan pie as my base. The pecan pie is 7.5 by 8, and then I'm going to use a little candy cane stripe, 7 1/4 by 7 3/4, and I love that the brown snowflakes go perfectly with our fall jackets, and that piece is 7 by 7 3/8, and then I'm going to use a little crumb cake cardstock that is a little longer, 6.5 by 8 3/4, and I feel like this is going to work perfectly for some extended journaling. I really want to journal. Now, I love this background with the circular candy canes and berries and sprigs in the background, and I totally want to use that. It totally speaks to days gone by, years gone by, but I want to be able to cut out some of those stockings on the back side. So I'm going to trace around the crumb cake, and I'm going to gut this a little bit to the interior of my pencil marks. It's going to end up being close to the 3-inch mark on the left and the right, and close to the 2-inch mark, a little less on the top and the bottom. And then that way I'm conserving that center piece, since there is a die in the Sentimental Wishes stamp and die set that does cut out both some ribbons on that back side as well as the stockings on the back side. So I don't want to waste any parts of this, and I think that's going to be an amazing base. And my friend Debbie and I have been friends, I think I might have said this already, at least 44 years, I think since 7th or 8th grade. And I've been lucky enough to have, if you follow my channel, you know, long friendships, 50-year friendships. And usually when Debbie and I get to be together, we're all always together at a wedding, a bridal shower, a reunion, a new baby, all the things, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm just gutting the other papers that I already gave you measurements for. I'm gutting everything at about a 1/2 inch. I don't have to gut them, but I am, just because if I make more layouts with this and I want more bits, I'm kind of frugal that way. But usually we are together, all of us that have been friends for a long time. When we get together, it's chaos. It's wonderful chaos, but we always have so much to do. And I loved that we went away last weekend and we just spent the day together. And it was our day. We could do whatever we wanted with our day. I'm just double checking my measurements here on the pecan pie cardstock. And I actually did make my hole larger than the pecan pie. I actually used the crumb cake as I traced around the crumb cake. And that was because the crumb cake is longer and it's going to cover up that gap. So don't get stressed when you see the gap. So now I'm going to layer the candy cane stripe, the brown snowflakes, and the crumb cake on top of each other. I'm going to be doing some treatments on it here in just a minute to give it that vintage feel. But yeah, we went away and we had really cute coffee in the morning at one of our favorite coffee shops. She comes about an hour from one direction and I come about a couple hours from another direction, and we met in the middle. I'm going to need some pops of red on the crumb cake, so I'm going to add a 4 1/8 by 6 1/8 card mat, photo mat on the 4x6 photo, and then I went ahead and typed on my journaling because I had a lot to say. I wanted to talk about how this was our day and how fun it was just to be together without having chaos or having to be the workers or having to run around. The last event that I saw Debbie at was her daughter's wedding this last summer. And so it's been, let's see, July, August, September, October, November, 4 months ago. So not too bad. 4 months had gone by, but so much happens that it is just therapy to catch up. And so I loved having this day to do anything we wanted or nothing, and just to have visits that are better than therapy. So I'm going to pull that crumb cake out and I'm going to distress it with my scissors, and I'm going to make sure that all the edges are distressed, but I'm also going to cut a little bit deeper in a couple areas. I kind of want there to be some nicks in the paper. I want to bend it and I want it really to look weathered. I want it to look vintage and old, and the pecan pie is perfect for distressing the edges. You can use a paper distressor. I have one of those as well, or just simply use the edge of your scissors. So again, we went out for a really cute coffee, and you're going to think this is funny, but the name of the place where we went and did porch pot classes. A porch pot is a big pot that you make with real plants, and it goes on your porch. And so of course we made it with pine and sprigs, and it had berries in it and pine cones in it, and I can't wait to scrap about it. It's so cute, and it had a little rustic wooden snowman made out of logs that we put inside of it. And then we just went to the class and cut our branches, and we had a big pot of dirt. And then after that we did a little bit of shopping, and then we went out for a really, really nice lunch, and it was the best conversation. It was so good that we didn't have to run, we didn't have to cook, we didn't have to get ready for an event and be rushed. It was a great, great day, and that makes me sentimental. It makes me sentimental for years gone by where life was easier. It felt easier, even though, I'm not sure that I would go back. I don't know how many of you would go back. I don't know that I want to go back, but there are times when I yearn for a simpler time because we're so busy. Like, I thought that this time in my life I would be like sitting on the porch with nothing to do, and I am busier now than I've ever been in my whole life. So this day was a gift. It was a real gift. And so Sentimental Christmas to me is really appropriate. So now I am going to go ahead and tear my journaling. and I'm going to dirty up the edges of the journaling. Now, part of me kind of wishes that I would have left my journaling on the left side flush and then slid that under and just kind of had it be maybe a square. The other part of me is really, really happy with the tearing. It seems like when I look back in the old scrapbooks, my mom did a lot of tearing of paper. Like things were in different shapes. And some of it was just square, like in a regular, like lift up adhesive photo album too. But a lot of times she tore out pieces of the newspaper and would put torn papers in the album. And so part of me is glad that I did that. I do kind of adjust it here a little bit when I start to add the bits. But I really want this to have this vintage feel, both in honor of Sentimental Christmas for Giving Tuesday, and then also for Debbie and I in honor of our 44 plus year friendship. And I think that I enjoy her even more over the years. Like, of course, we get more of an appreciation that she's just a lovely person. And whenever I get done talking to her, it feels like therapy. So I did actually fussy cut some bouquets out of pattern paper as well. I do not end up using those on this layout. I also make some flourishes out of the coordinating garden green and the coordinating old olive, which I can't quite make those work either. I didn't know, and I really wanted to audition a lot of pieces and see how they worked and how I was going to be using those. But I do end up using the ribbon that is cut from a die cut right out of the pattern paper. And I do end up using, of course, the stocking and some of the stamped leaves that I'm going to stamp right here. So there's some holly leaves and berries and a die that cuts those out. I'm going to stamp about 5 of those on scrap white with pecan pie. Part of me wishes I would have stamped it in black, and then part of me is happy with pecan pie. So I'm not sure without trying it, but it's not a really definitive line with the pecan pie. So in a way, I kind of like that because it looks more worn, but in another way, I might have liked to try the black. And so I'm going to bring in, instead of bringing in the garden green or the old olive, which are coordinating colors, I'm bringing in light mossy meadow in the Stampin' Blends. I'm going to use light mossy meadow because of the pine near the vintage sleigh. So Debbie and I found this vintage sleigh at, did I tell you it was Holly Jolly? Or Jolly Lane, not Holly Jolly. So it's Jolly Lane Floral is the place where we went that did the porch pots. And I thought, oh my goodness, Jolly Lane is like all about Christmas, even though it's a flower place and a plant place and a Christmas tree place, but it's open all year round and it has decor. And we went and we were able to have, you could have cocoa or apple cider, or you could even have a drink. And then they had little treats for us. And then they had a fireplace going and other little photo op places, but this sleigh was there. And so I went ahead and I grabbed the Poppy Parade in a Stampin' Right. Now you could use Stampin' Blends, but the Stampin' Right was tiny and handy, and so I did the berries in Poppy Parade Stampin' Right. I did the leaves in the light mossy meadow Stampin' Blends, and then I came back in with pecan pie for the branches. And then I'm going to run them through the die cutter, and I did also use the blender, the Stampin' Blends blender pen, to make those leaves not look so perfect, like to make them look a little bit worn. Now, many of you out there may recognize this next oldie but goodie. These are the fancy doilies, and as you can see, I'm putting a dryer sheet on my plate, then I'm putting my paper on, then I'm putting the doilies on, then I'm putting my top plate on. Now, I have shown this several times on my channel, but I never pass up an opportunity to show it again in case there's anyone new out there. When you're working with intricate dies that end up making you get a piercing tool or a brushing tool and make you brush out all the little bits and have them flying all over your room, this is a great hack. You can press your, run your die through over the dryer sheet, and it will pull off most of those pieces onto the dryer sheet. I've had it pull every single piece onto the dryer sheet, and sometimes it won't pull all of them out, but it loosens them so that they are very easily able to be knocked out by just simply flicking those with your finger. They're all self-contained on the dryer sheet, and then you can reuse that dryer sheet until it's super tattered. So as you can see, I've created some large doilies, one white and one crumb cake, and some small doilies in real red pecan pie and white. I don't know which ones I'm going to use. I don't know where I'm going to use them. I do know that I'll pull them back out and I'll dirty them up with pecan pie and make them look a little bit vintage. But for right now, I'm just sort of auditioning them and sort of trying to figure out where I want them. And I really want to use these doilies for a couple of reasons, but I started to say you might recognize those if you've come over from close to my heart. I use these year after year, and no, I don't use them all the time, every month or anything like that, but they are my go-to anytime it's down home, country, rustic, vintage, anything like that. They are a go-to incredible die that I'm so happy that I have. Now, just about every stamp and die company out there has made a doily. And you can also make a doily on the Cricut. If you have a doily, I'm sure Stampin' Up! Has made a doily. They're out there everywhere. But if you're lucky enough to have these close to my heart doilies, I love them. I've loved them for years. I will keep them probably forever. Never say forever, but I feel like I'll keep them forever because I have never not pulled those out when it was appropriate. I always remember that I have them, and I always use them. So now I'm going to dirty up those edges again and make them look vintage. But anyway, they had photo ops around the Jolly Lane floral place. They had like old white painted doors with Christmas trees and poinsettias, and they had little benches, and they had this sleigh. And of course, we hopped right up there the second we saw it. And there was a young girl there, and we asked her if she would take our photo, and she was such a good sport. She took our photo, and then when we got off the sleigh, I said to her, oh, would you like us to take yours too? I think she was with maybe her mom and her sister or something, and she looked at us like we had just suggested something so embarrassing. And I was like, I love that we're of that age where we just don't care. We are gonna like hop on up there and do it and not worry about what anyone else thinks. But she didn't get in there, and she didn't want to, and I'm like, darn, you might want to have that someday. It might mean something to you someday. But you know, when they're of that age where things are kind of embarrassing and they don't want to do anything different in front of other people. But we did it. We were goobers. We were 80s ladies. We just hopped right up there, and we're like, yay, this is a cute sleigh. And I love that we did it. I was so happy. And so now I'm just making an arrangement. I'm using those pieces. I do try to use those bouquets that I fussy cut out of the pattern paper. I can't quite get them to work. And I think it's a fine line. It's a super busy wallpapery pattern, right? It reminds me of Grandma's wrapping paper. It reminds me of wallpaper. Like I said, it reminds me of the time of Rudolph before Rudolph was updated with Technicolor. It's that kind, and it's supposed to be busy. That's the way it was. And so I think less is more with the embellishments on this one. And so I'm just going to put a little bit right here, just a little tuft right there. And I'm loving that. And so yeah, I have teased Debbie over the years because she was always a beauty in high school, and she just looks like she just walked out of high school still. Like, you know, you ever have those friends that just never change, that they just look, or even if they do change, they change for the better. Like they just totally are able to rock every year as they get older, and she never takes a bad picture. And so I just love that and she's lovely inside. She's just as lovely inside as outside, and I love our therapy day. So now I have, of course, pulled out my Everyday Details dies and did like a medium-sized circle, and I pulled in this stamp from Peaceful Season. Now, I don't always like to pull in yet another stamp, but this spoke to me. It's friends and family are the true gift of Christmas, and I just had to use it for this because our friendship means so much to me, and it just is so fitting. And then, of course, like every layout that I've done in the last 6 months, I brought out the Nested Essentials banners. They're stitched banners. They're a go-to. They go with everything. And I wanted to get a little more color balance. So I did a real red banner and a garden green banner up there at the top. I tried to make some of the different sprigs work, and I think the sprigs are going to be amazing for another layout. They're just not quite going with this one. It's not quite going with the busy papers, and I don't think that we need it. And so I'm going to stick with the stamped die holly leaves and berries and those banners and the doilies, and I feel really good about that. Now I've grabbed a together title off of the Cricut because it says it all. We had the day together for just us, and we're doing it again, and we have already decided we're doing porch pots again next year. They're so cute. They just give you a big pot of dirt and all these different pine pieces, and you arrange them and you put pine cones in it and berries and a little rustic wooden snowman. I can't wait to scrap about that so that you can see what the porch pot turned out like. So now I'm adding some of those druzy gems that come right in the Sentimental Christmas Sweet collection, but remember, it is the DSP, the Designer Series paper, Sentimental Christmas Designer Series paper, on December 3rd, when a portion of the proceeds from that Designer Series paper goes to help literacy all around the globe, children in literacy programs. So we're so used to Operation Smile from Close to My Heart, which was the Close to My Heart charity, that I'm just getting used to a lot of the Stampin' Up! Charities, but I am all about Operation Smile as a speech pathologist, and I'm all about literacy and language as well. So I think it's a great cause, and I hope I can give you lots of ideas on how to use your DSP. Hey, stay tuned right here for more on Snips by Kelly.